Well, I'm here at the beautiful Best Western Cranberry Lounge to speak with former Valemount resident Christine Thelker, who's in Valemount on September the 15th to do a meet and greet book signing at the Gathering Tree to promote her new book, For This I Am Grateful. Welcome, Christine. Welcome back to Valemount.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Love coming back to Valemount.
Great. First of all, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your backstory before, I don't want to go into too much detail, I'd rather have you tell the story, but before your dementia diagnosis, can you tell us a little bit about what you were doing and how that came about?
Yeah, I had left Valemount after my husband passed away, and I was living and working in healthcare in Vernon, specifically in dementia care. That was dementia care and end-of-life care was what I sort of specialized in, and loved it after many years. And then fast forward to the start of this new journey. I had a stroke while I was working on the floor at the time, and from there. I had problems on and off for many years, actually, but the dots didn't get all connected until after that episode. And then it began a journey of, I think it took about a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years before I got my firm diagnosis of vascular dementia. Yeah. So
sort of a cruel irony that you're working in the field and then the one disease that you end up getting is that one. How did that make you feel?
Frustrated, because I knew all too well, because I worked endlessly and tirelessly on behalf of families and for residents in dementia care to have changes made so that they could have a better quality of life even during that end stage. So I knew where the shortfalls were. I knew what that end stage looked like inside out. So it frustrated that I wasn't ever able to make enough changes happen. Small changes did, but not enough. And worried about would I be able to maintain my wellness enough to fight for those things now, even more so, right. on a different level. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's been about 4 or 5 years now since that time?
Five and some, and yeah, heading into the 6th year.
So tell me about what it's been like for you since the diagnosis.
At first, it was it was life-shattering, because the day you get the diagnosis, your job disappears. Your whole life falls out from under you, and you have no footing. And you're told, go home, get your affairs in order. You're told your lifespan is now shrunk 3 to an 8 year period. And you're like, wait, what, so, and you get into a really sort of dark place, because there's not proper resources, and there isn't the tools in place to help show you how to live during that time.
Right.
So you're just left to figure it out, and the doctors just go, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you. So that's a pretty hard, that's the hard blow. And that's really the piece that really needs to be changed drastically. Right. Not everyone manages to pull back out of that. Mm-hmm. I'm a fighter, I've got a lot of fighting spirit in me. So I just got up one day and said, this isn't good enough for me. There has to be more. So, then I started my own research, and I started looking, and fast forward to today, and
Right. So most of the medical profession, I think, is geared to dealing with patients in end-stage dementia, right? There's not too much, as you say, there's not too much now for what can you do when you still have some cognitive abilities and you still have the ability to have some quality of life here, right? I know you've been advocating a lot for that in your book and in your blogs and in other things. Do you want to talk about how the medical profession deals with, dementia is generally considered an elderly condition. You usually get it at a more advanced age. And so there's, in my experiences, there's been this, it's part of aging. It comes with aging. It has to be expected kind of thing. And we'll do what we can, but there's not much we can do.
Yeah. Right?
In your situation, you were early onset diagnosed at 56?
55.
55, right? So it's quite unusual to see that. How have you been able to cope with that, and what have you been able to do to help the medical professional help you, I guess?
That's a great question. I'm lucky I have a really good team of doctors who were very honest about, we don't have anything and we don't have answers, but together we'll do this and we'll learn from each other. And they now say to me that they learn more and I help them more than they actually help me, which I don't believe is true. I believe it's a real effort on everybody's part. But yes, the medical profession, and even in nursing school, from doctors to nurses to occupational therapists and physiotherapists, they're not given the tools and the education around dementia. It's kind of slid under the carpet. Nobody wants to talk about it. I always think of it as if you look back 25 or 30 years when nobody wanted to say the C word because cancer was so bad. Mm-hmm. So people wouldn't talk about it. We're sort of there with dementia, and we're just prying the lid off it now because things have progressed to the state where they now know that those people that they were considering it just an old age person probably had it 10 plus years prior to. It just wasn't being diagnosed. Right? So, and now people are being diagnosed 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Those numbers are increasing at horrendous rates. Youngest person that I've met and am aware of, 18 years old.
Wow.
We've had people right here in Canada in their 20s and 30s, and so we have to shift the focus. This isn't an old age person's illness. You get to the late stage at some stage, but we need to shift the focus to the early stage and the living stage. We have to shift from not focus so much on a cure, but care until cure. So how do you provide the care and the quality of life for people so that we can live and we can thrive? And that's a whole educational piece for all of society. Because even now, people go, oh my God, you have dementia? And it's like, yes, I do.
Right. Well, it's certainly one of those things that's been stigmatized over the years, and I think it's because of lack of information or misinformation, or people are just, they fear what they don't know.
Yeah,
right?
that's what it
is.
So
just getting back to what you were just talking about, what kinds of things would you suggest the medical profession focus on now for younger diagnosed people?
One thing that we don't have, which we desperately need, is we need a resource guide. And it can be built, and actually I'm working with a research group right now that's working on that very end of things, developing one. So it will be as simple as a button on the desktop at a medical office or your doctor's office that he can push, and it'll print out. So after he gives you a diagnosis, he can tell you, here's some resources that will really help you, and I'd like you to look at them, and then let's get back together and have a conversation about where we can go and how we can best assist you moving forward. Instead of saying, go home, get your affairs in order, and prepare for the end.
Right. Which
You know.
which could be, as you say, 3 to 8 years, or it could be 20 years. You don't know. Right?
That's right. That's right. It's the unknown.
Right.
You know, when you look at it in that context, I'm heading into 6th year of an 8-year prognosis. Well, guess what? I have every intentions of shattering that. I'm not giving in to that.
Good for you.
I'm not going to lay down and say, well, they said I only have 3 to 8 years. But that can be really dangerous and detrimental to people. So we have to change that. People are given hope, and people are given some purpose and made to feel like they still have purpose and abilities, you know. Enable people with dementia. Quit disabling them.
Right.
You know, don't send them home and they're done. They can't work, they can't, you're not allowed to do anything anymore. And then even your circle around you, not everybody's circle, but a lot of people's circles automatically stop you from driving. They stop you from, well, we'll do that, we'll do that, we'll do that. So they're disabling you instead of enabling you.
Right. Right. Because they don't know.
Because they don't know.
Right. So how do we get around that? How do we change perceptions?
We need to showcase more of this side of dementia, this side of how people can thrive. We need to educate. We need to be able to talk to healthcare professionals and get relevant information to them. We people living with dementia, and not everyone has the ability or is willing to, but those that are willing to make themselves vulnerable, to expose themselves in a really personal way, to work with the researchers at all the different universities and globally, and who are willing to stand up and speak and share their stories, will help change the perspective. You know, it's you look at how Terry Fox changed cancer in this country. So we need people to be willing to listen. We need people to be willing to learn and to understand. And the only way we do that is by opening ourselves up.
Right. Are there any organizations or individuals other than yourself who are kind of at the forefront of that change?
Yeah, there's a number of them, and all have different strong points. I'm a board member of Dementia Alliance International, and it is run completely by people living with dementia, and we are in 49 countries. We're sort of a very unique organization in that we have no office buildings that we have to fund. We have no paid staff. It's all us volunteering our time and our efforts. Everything we do is virtual, other than our, advocating and speaking engagements and those kinds of things. And we work with a lot of global researchers. We work with the World Health Organization, the United Nations. We are very involved often there. So we do a lot of work there. I'm also involved with Dementia Advocacy Canada, which is a fairly new, in the last year and a half, organization. and Dementia Alliance International partners with them. So that's really good for Canada because it's helping spread the word. They're running, of course, because of COVID, a lot of webinars and Zoom meetings and things. So the difference is being made, but it's a slow go. It's not fast enough, you know?
Right, yeah, especially when the clock is ticking. Right?
Clock is running, yeah.
Right. Let me go back to the United Nations. I understand you spoke to the United Nations.
Yes, I did. I spoke at the Convention of State Parties on Persons with Disabilities. I spoke on human rights and people with disabilities, and then I spoke about women and dementia. An incredible experience. Incredible experience. It's amazing what you learn when you're out there. One of the things that happened right off out of the starting gate, and you've got people from all over the world. You've got kings and all kinds of levels of people. You have people, just regular everyday people like me, but you have all these different levels. And we were at the biggest disabilities event held globally. They were not allowing people access for wheelchairs. So we actually had to protest outside of the United Nations in New York and stop them from starting the convention until they corrected that.
A convention on disability.
A convention on disabilities.
Oh, that boggles the mind.
That boggles the mind. So you see what kinds of things you run into and up against. It's like, how can this be?
Right.
You know, like, so then when you put the dementia piece into it, that's sort of been shunned and not talked about for so long, and you get a better understanding. Okay, this is why we are where we are today, right?
How do you feel your message was received there?
It was received incredibly well. One of the gentlemen from the World Health Organization sought me out afterwards, and he said to me, I know it feels a lot of times like you're not getting anywhere. He said, but I can tell you, you are, and you were heard, and you are doing exactly what you were meant to be doing.
That's great.
He said, so don't give up and don't stop. So when that comes back to you, it sort of inspires you to keep going, because sometimes you feel defeated, and sometimes you feel like, I don't know if I can keep doing this, because it doesn't feel like we're making a difference. But then you realize, if you don't keep fighting for it, who's going to? Right? So there's things that inspire you.
Let's bring the conversation back around to your book. How did it come to be? You're a first-time author. This is a first-time book. How did this book come to be, and why did you decide to write it?
Through my advocating work. And I started writing, actually, as a way to help my doctors. As I would get to my doctor's appointments, and they would often say to me, okay, what's the last couple of weeks been like? And I would just sort of shrug my shoulders and say, good, I guess. Because I didn't remember what I wanted to tell them. This was happening or that was happening. So I started writing as a way to help them. And I still do it today. If something is happening with me and my dementia, I write it down. And then my next appointment, I take them this list. And it really helps them have a better understanding. And then I just kept writing, because I thought it was a way for me to help myself as well understand what was going on. And then I don't really know why or how it it should become a book. But eventually, with the help of my sister-in-law, we correlated it and sent it off to publishers, and lo and behold, publishers were interested in it. So we settled on McCausland Ollie's contract offer that they sent, and to me, the book was never, it's about me, but it's not about me, and that's a very hard thing to explain. The story is my story, and it's my journey. And all my writing that you read in my book is always written in the moment, because otherwise I don't remember. So sometimes I write at 3 a.m, sometimes it's 11 at night, sometimes it's, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. When something is happening to me, that's when I'm writing it. So I still write today, and of course I blog, but the idea was to make sure that other people who are getting diagnosed had the ability to hang on to something that showed them that there's still hope. There's still hope. So it was about helping them.
Right.
Right?
Did you ever find, so it started more or less as a diary and some notes to your doctor kind of combined into maybe a blog, and then you thought, well, this would have value for people and do it. Do you ever find when you write something down in the middle of the night or something happens that you go back and you're surprised?
Always. And it's very funny. After my book was released, I had a lady get a hold of me, and she said, I really want to talk to you about something that I wrote in the book. And I said, I did? And she said, well, it's your book. And I'm like, you have to understand, I have dementia. So as fast as it's there, it's gone. And if you show me or tell me what page it is and I can look it up and read it, it will take me back to what I was feeling at that time, and then I can have a discussion about it. But I actually can't tell you what's in the book. Right? And people are always mystified by that. But that's life with dementia. Right? So it's an interesting concept, really, for people to try to grapple with.
So it's somewhat therapeutic for you as well, you would say?
It's therapeutic for me because if I can make a difference, and I've said this since I was first diagnosed, if I had to be given this diagnosis, it couldn't be for nothing. So for me, it's always about making that difference for others. That's what it's always about.
Well, let's talk about that. What's the reaction been, especially to people who have dementia who read your book? I'm sure they've contacted you. What kinds of things are they saying?
I've heard from people from Singapore, Australia, England, across Canada and the United States, and even locally. In Vernon, I met a lady. She came to a book signing there, her and her husband, and she had been diagnosed almost 4 years ago. A couple of weeks later, I had a coffee with her, and she said to me, she said, I just want to tell you that meeting you and reading your book, and she said, I've read it once, I'm reading it a second time. She said, you have literally saved my life. Her husband sent me a message and said, thank you for giving my wife back to me. I cried.
I guess.
2 days later, she called me and she said, I just saw my specialist. he asked me what's changed. I told him about meeting you and your book. He wants your book. Can we get a copy to him? She said, he can't believe the difference you've made for me, that I have hope again.
Wow.
So, sorry, I get teary thinking about it, right? Those kinds of things, that's what it's about. It's not about me. It's about them. It's about, I don't want anybody to have to walk that walk I did. It's lonely, it's terrifying, and with nothing to turn to. So we have to get more things out there that can change that for people.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you hearing from families? I'm sure that reading what you go through from a perspective of a dementia patient must help to give them some answers and some clarity as to what their loved ones are going through as well.
Well, it does. In fact, I had a lady the other day who said to me, we had quite a long talk, and she said to me, "Oh, I'm disabling my dad. I have to stop that." And I said, "Okay, tell me about that." So she said, "I didn't realize until I was reading your book how important it is that I just walk away, and it doesn't matter if it takes him 3 hours to put his shirt on. All that matters is that he did it. It doesn't matter if it's inside out or not. It's that he did it. Let him do it." So, families get frustrated because they want the person to maintain and be able to do what they used to do. And it's not possible. And it slips little by little by little. And people around us get frustrated waiting for us to do tasks that we used to do so easily. And so we have to educate them that it's okay to walk away from that and let the person struggle with it.
Right. That's our problem.
Yeah.
It's not your problem.
That's
right?
exactly
As a
what it
patient,
is.
yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And that again comes back to that education, Don't tell people the minute they're diagnosed, you're not allowed to drive. Well, that's wrong. A lady that I used to work with came to me, and she was diagnosed with an early onset as well, although she's a little older than me, but it'd still be considered fairly early onset. And she was in tears, and she said, "My family decided that I couldn't drive anymore, so my car's gone," she said, "and now they've told me I have to sell my condo, and they're making me go to assisted living." And she was just devastated.
Right.
And it's their fears,
Right.
which only makes it worse for the person living with the illness.
And because there's no information, right? There's a gap there, right?
There's that gap because they're sitting.
We can treat you in a home. That's what we know how to do, but we don't know how to help you live a somewhat normal life, as normal as you can.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't know how to help you be productive anymore. We don't know how to encourage you to, keep going. And that's slowly changing. There's more and more research out there that's showing how important a more functional medicine-based team is. You need occupational therapists and physiotherapists working with you. You need nutritionalists working with you, because all of those, nutrition, exercise, all of those, sleep, we need sleep doctors, because that's a huge issue with people with dementia. All of those things, if those components are all brought in, people can live a really productive life, and lots of times for a long time. I know people that were diagnosed over 20 and 25 years ago, and they're still living at home, and they're still functioning.
But I would imagine that the change needs to come at the top with the medical profession and doctors understanding that there are levels to dementia. It's not this. It's a wide range from this to that, and they could advocate for you to say, look, you know, this person's 55 years old. With care and with help, you know, they could stay at home and do many of the normal functions that you'd want them to do.
We most certainly maybe couldn't work to the same capacity we used to, but for any other illness, there's job modifications. For dementia, there's not. You have a dementia diagnosis, you're done. Doesn't matter what your career is, you're finished. And it's like, we have dementia. We didn't become stupid. Like, we still have a lot of abilities and capabilities. We just maybe need some adapting done to how we're doing our job, or the job that, you know, what it all entails. But it can be done.
Sure.
But that isn't there yet. We're not there yet.
Right.
And we need to get there. We need to get there.
It's no different than somebody all of a sudden becoming mobility challenged or sight challenged or hearing challenged, right? It's not that their life is over. They just have to change and adapt to that circumstance.
Yes,
right?
yes. And most people get help through their career job people to do those modifications. Most organizations do adapt. They change desks. They do all kinds of things. They change your work hours and all kinds of things to help you stay productive and get you back into being a productive citizen. And with dementia, the exact opposite happens. You know, and that's hard to take.
Right.
You know, that's devastating for people.
Do you think, in your opinion, that helps speed the process for dementia patients? If you're no longer working and you're no longer doing some of the things that you do, and people put you in a box, does it kind of take away the lack of hope and the lack of what's the word I'm looking for? Productivity? Does that kind of speed the dementia? Would you think?
Of course it does, because we all, it doesn't matter what age or stage we're in life, we all want to feel valued. We all want to feel like we have a purpose. We all want to feel like we can contribute. So when you're made to feel like you no longer can contribute, that's very destructive. And that's very hard to find your way out of once you're made to feel that way. So that's the real challenge, is to change that piece. And for sure it accelerates things, because the less you do, the less you can do. It's like the old saying, use it or lose it type thing, you know.
Right.
It's like that. Our brain needs to work, and it might not work in the same capacity it did before, but it still needs to work. You can still learn. You can still, there's all kinds of things you can learn. There's all kinds of things you can contribute. I wasn't a writer before, you know. I wasn't a public speaker before. I've learned to do those things. So we can do a lot of things.
Right. Yeah.
We just have to be given the hand to do them, right?
It's education and advocacy, and I understand that you've been called a fierce advocate for dementia. How do you deal with that?
I find it kind of funny, because I don't see myself being that fierce. But it also makes me sort of happy, because I've had to learn in a lot of different ways after being diagnosed to be fearless. You know, I had to fight the stigma. I had to fight the, you know, people's vision of what I was supposed to. Well, you know, you can't have dementia because you're still doing this, and it's like, so I had to fight all those things. So I guess it does, you become fierce.
Right.
In that aspect.
Let me ask you about the title of the book. For this I am grateful. For what are you grateful?
I'm grateful for a lot of things. I'm grateful that I have and am surrounded by a great circle, even though I'm alone and live alone. I have a great circle of people around me who have stood by me through some pretty dark times through this and encouraged me. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the life I live today because, I have a terminal illness. I know that tomorrow it could unravel and I could very quickly end up at the end stage. I don't sugarcoat or hide that. I don't pretend that that's not looming. But I live in the now. I don't have the same stresses and worries that probably a lot of people do because I live in the now. Because there's no guarantee for me after today, after this moment. So I'm going to enjoy this interview because, wow, this is an incredible thing that I get to do. I get to meet you and sit here with you and have this conversation. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful for all of those things. I think my life is not at all what it used to be. It doesn't look at all like it used to. But my life isn't bad. I have a pretty good life. I'm happy, and I'm grateful for the opportunities that my illness has provided me, because it may be a terminal illness, but it most certainly has brought a whole new chapter to my life, and it's opened my world up to things that would have never been possible before. Never been possible.
It's a remarkable outlook. I'm not sure many people in your position would share that, so that's quite remarkable. Let's end this talk on hope, because that's what the theme of your book is, that's what you espouse. What do you say to people who maybe are in your situation, they've been diagnosed, or they're living with someone who has, about hope?
Well, hope comes in many forms, and it can mean so many things to people. But, you can find hope within yourself. You can find hope through others. I think in order to, and you can provide hope to others. In order to provide hope, you have to first be willing to be vulnerable yourself. So you have to be willing to open yourself up in ways that very few people are willing to. And when you do, hope just sort of erupts on its own, and it feeds on itself. So anything and anyone that you can help find that hope, it'll come back tenfold. And with hope, we can change the world through hope.
Absolutely. Can you tell people where your book's available?
It's available on Amazon. It's available at Indigo and Chapters. Any bookstore has the ability to order it in. It's also available at Barnes & Noble and through Austin Macaulay's website. It can be ordered directly from them as well. Great. So, yeah.
Thank you. It's been wonderful meeting you. And
thank you.
You gave me a little sense of hope today, so thank you.
Good. Oh, that's great. Thanks. And thanks for having me. Happy to be back in Valemount.
Yeah, lovely to hear you, and I hope the book signing went well, and that you get this book out to as many people as can be helped by it.
That's the hope. Thank you very much for helping do that.